Back to you, Liz.
Edward Lawrence, great reporting there. It's good to see you. Joining us now from the House Republican Conference, he's the vice chair. He's Congressman Mike Johnson, along with Congressman Ken Buck from House Foreign Affairs. Let's take it to you, Congressman Johnson. First, Senator Mitch McConnell is saying no to his Biden Supreme Court nominee, Judge Brown Jackson. Your reaction to that?
Well, we welcome that news. Of course, we're not sure that she was properly vetted by the Biden administration. There are some serious questions about her leniency in some of these sentencing cases dealing with child pornography, and it's just one of the worst things you can imagine. And she was not completely forthright with regard to her judicial philosophy. These are fair questions. They're important questions. That's what a nomination and a vetting process is all about, and I don't think her answers are satisfactory. So, I mean, if it was up to us, we would love the White House to go back to the drawing board, but we'll see what happens.
To the Congressman's point, Congressman Buck, it is the last day of Senate hearings for the Supreme Court nominee, Judge Brown Jackson. You know, it seems like senators came away even more baffled. We have GOP Senator Ted Cruz. He's not going to vote for the judge. Senator Tom Cotton said he doesn't find her testimony credible. But she could be seated on the Supreme Court by April. What do you think?
I think that when a judge can't define what a woman is, we've got serious problems in this country, and that's exactly where we are with Judge Jackson. She is not just soft on crime, but as my friend Mike pointed out, soft on the worst kind of crime: child pornography, child predators, watching pornography, and then going out and preying on young people. We need a judge, especially during this time of rising crime because of Democrat policies. We need a judge who sends a very clear message that criminals are in trouble.
So to the Congressman's point, Congressman Johnson, Senator Mitch McConnell has said this too. Less than 1 year in the D.C. Circuit Court. The only real body of evidence is her trial record as a trial judge. She's only written 2 opinions. Justice Gorsuch had authored, I think, 212 Circuit Court opinions. Justice Kavanaugh, 306. Justice Barrett, was outpacing them. In her 3 years, she had nearly 100. So when there's only 2 appellate court decisions, and when it seemed, when watching what was going on, when the senators tried to ask her a question and said, let's get into the specifics of each case, she would turn it around on Congress and say it's Congress's fault for the sentencing laws.
Yeah, she was very evasive, and she went to her methodology instead of her philosophy. Look, the vetting of a Supreme Court justice is one of the most important functions of the United States Senate. These are judges, of course, that sit for life, and when someone is the age of a Justice Brown Jackson, she could conceivably be on the high court for decades. So the longest-lasting legacy of any president is who they put on the federal courts, and the most important, of course, is our highest one. And so, look, I think the level of scrutiny was called for. I do not think that she met the test, and I think these complaints and concerns that are being stated are shared by millions and millions of the American people. This is of great concern, and what my friend and colleague Ken Buck said is exactly right. If you can't define woman, that says a whole lot about your philosophy, and I think that's a scary prospect for her to be on that bench.
Yeah, let's look to see what happened. Let's watch this exchange with Senator Josh Hawley. Watch this.
I can't vote for somebody on the U.S. Supreme Court who's going to apologize to criminals, who is not going to be tough when you need to be tough in order to protect children. And you've got to be able, when the time comes, to say, listen, if you are a child predator, you are going to jail for a long time. And that's something she just hasn't been willing to do.
Senator, I've answered this question. I've explained how the guidelines work, and I'll stand on my answer.
But the guidelines are not mandatory. I wish they were, but they're not. The Supreme Court made that determination. I'm trying to understand why you think it's rational not to sentence criminals based on the number of images they have. You say that this is a policy disagreement that you have with the guidelines.
Senator, I previously explained what the policy disagreement is, and I will stand on my answer.
So you're not going to answer my question?
No, I've answered your question, and my answer is
You haven't
I've
answered my question.
explained.
I'm sitting here asking you, and you're declining to answer. Would it surprise you to learn that Mr. Stewart's a recidivist? He was warrants issued again for his arrest just 3 years after you sentenced him.
Would it surprise me?
Yeah. Would it surprise you?
You know, Senator, there is data in the Sentencing Commission and elsewhere that indicates that there are serious recidivism issues. And so among the various people that I've sentenced, I'm not surprised that there are people who reoffend, and it is a terrible thing that happens in our system.
Congressman Buck, so if she's aware of recidivism and is aware that people will reoffend, in particular with this crime, why go soft to begin with, Congressman, on these individuals?
Because she served as a public defender. It is clear where her heart is. It's with the defendants. It's not with the victims. I prosecuted with the Department of Justice for 15 years, and I can tell you the highest level of recidivism is with child sex offenders. And she was soft on those very people, people that scare us all to death when we have children and we send our children to school because we just don't know who's lurking around the corner. And to have a Supreme Court justice from the far left who is soft on crime is just another sign of the weakness of the Biden administration.
Yeah, that's what the GOP is going to take into the midterms, Congressman Johnson, what Congressman Buck just said. I mean, Marquette polls show that 2/3 of swing state voters, the independent voters, they don't like rising crime. You know, but the media is saying any questioning or any criticism of Judge Jackson is basically racism. What do you say to that?
Oh, that's absurd. I mean, we are vetting her philosophy and her qualifications, and that's what Congress is supposed to do. That is the specific job of the U.S. Senate, and they're doing a fine job with that. But listen, the Biden administration has projected weakness. They are either unable or unwilling to address the crime problem, and this nominee, I think, highlights that. It highlights the position they have on these critical issues, and they are issues the American people care about. I think this is one more factor that's going to play into the election this fall, and we're expecting a big red wave because of it.
So, Congressman Buck, did it register in the media or elsewhere that Justice Amy Coney Barrett's nomination hearing, there was unrelenting attacks on her background? Everything was fair game. Her religion, her personal life, her fabricated theories of her prior assurances on pending cases, which wasn't true. Amy Coney Barrett was also surrounded by pictures of people relying on the Affordable Care Act. She later voted to preserve that act as expected. So when you stack up what happened with Justice Kavanaugh and Justice Barrett, what is your take on how the media is handling this nomination?
Well, they've been unfair all along, and any criticism of President Obama was racist. Any criticism of this nominee is racist. It wasn't racist. It wasn't anti-Catholic when they attacked Justice Barrett. It wasn't, anti-woman. It wasn't sexist when they attacked her. The idea that what they did to Justice Kavanaugh was almost inhumane. And yet that fraud continued to be perpetrated even after he was sworn in. So the idea that we are treating or the Senate is treating this candidate unfairly is ridiculous. That the purpose of going through these hearings is to make sure that the American people have confidence in the nominee and ultimately probably the Supreme Court justice. In this case, they don't, and they shouldn't.
Congressman Mike Johnson and Ken Buck, it's good to see you both. Come back soon. Great to have you on.